Welcome, everybody. It's time once again to grab your board, paddle out, catch a wave. Ride that sales pipeline with Matt Hines from Hines Marketing. Hey, Matt.
How are we doing, Paul?
Well, I feel like I really am paddling in the surf here today. It's raining in Southern California, and that's a rarity.
You know, so I was talking to someone, maybe it was you last week, we were talking about the rain in Southern California, that some people, when it rains, they just cancel their plans.
That's it. They cancel their appointments. They say, the heck with it. I'll wait till tomorrow. By then, it'll surely clear up.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, no, I mean, we don't, obviously in Seattle, nobody cancels their plans because of the rain. We have been getting a lot of snow in the mountains in particular, and, that freaks people out. People don't know how to drive in the rain in Seattle, really, let alone driving in the snow.
Yeah, I'll bet.
When, we get the lowland snow, it really kind of screws us up.
Well, see, weather just throws everybody off, and it probably throws sales projections off and stuff. I remember reading a year ago when they had some big snowstorms back east, and the whole national economy took a dump because trucks couldn't get through and other things. It's just crazy.
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, back in the day when I was running marketing inside of startups, we had an inside sales team, and if it snowed and we had sort of a quote-unquote snow day, meaning people couldn't get into the office, that was a big deal. I mean, you got to get people on the phones, and this is back when you couldn't just dial in from your home. You didn't have a VoIP phone. You could just plug in wherever. Not getting people in the office to make calls was a big deal, and so you got to pay attention to that. But let's we could talk about the weather, Paul,
but we can't do anything about it. All we can do is talk about it.
You can't do anything about the weather, but you can do something about your sales, and that's what we're here to talk about. So thanks everyone for joining us. Sales Pipeline Radio. How do you like that transition? If you're listening to us live, thank you very much for joining us. We are live every Thursday at 2:30 Eastern, 11:30 Pacific. You can also catch us on the podcast. So for those of you listening and subscribing on the podcast, thank you very much. You can get us on the iTunes Store and Google Play anytime, and of course, all of our episodes are available on demand at salespipelineradio.com. We are featuring throughout this series sales and marketing leaders who have interesting things to say. We've got speakers, we've got authors, influencers, and as much as possible, especially in 2017, we're featuring practitioners. We're featuring the people that are operating sales and marketing in the trenches, doing the hard work, that understand that the sausage getting made isn't always pretty, but are trying to innovate and figure that out. And we've got with us today a very special guest, Sherry Johnson, who is the Senior Vice President of Marketing at Radius, and has an illustrious career in marketing. At some point, we're going to talk about Santa.com, I promise. But before we get to that, we'll talk a few other things. Sherry, thanks so much for joining us on Sales Pipeline Radio.
Thanks for having me, Matt. Happy to be here.
Awesome. I mean, I feel like there's a bunch of different areas we could take this discussion. I mean, just based on your background, demand gen in the marketing and technology space. But the one place I think is, we're sitting here. It's already technically late January, if we can all believe it. And so, the 2017 is well underway. As you look at the year, as you look at what's important to B2B marketing, and as you think about how you are driving the marketing strategy at Radius, what are some of the places that you're seeing particular focus? Where are the places that you're putting bets on to drive marketing results in 2017?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, I think year over year, this year is no different than any others, that marketing has pressure to really help scale the organization, especially in a startup that I'm in. And so we're continuing to have pressure on driving greater value for our marketing dollars and at a more rapid pace. So that in my mind, obviously tends to draw people to quick win tactics. But I'm a big firm believer that there is really no silver bullet, and we do need to develop a real well orchestrated machine throughout your engine to really draw prospects into successful customers and customers into successful advocates. While there's no silver bullet, I am definitely doubling down in some areas specifically that we have just drawn significant ROI on from last year. And some of those areas are especially back in the field marketing space. We've seen quite a bit of success where we're at in an organization, just driving that education, building that trust with our customers, getting that face-to-face connection has been successful in helping drive and scale the organization.
Well, I love to hear some of the things you're saying in terms of where you're focused. I love to hear the life cycle marketing approach, where it's not just about getting new customers in the boat, but also turning them into advocates and ensuring that you're doing the right things across the business. I mean, and that really requires an integrated approach, not just in who you're selling to and how you're marketing, but also customer communication, customer success, product marketing, etc. What are some of the best practices you see working that can help B2B companies, continue to innovate and be successful and proactive on the acquisition side, but really to take a full life cycle, full lifetime value approach to the customer?
Yeah, good question. For us, I see a lot of success in really instilling the core personas and the core buyer as something that's front and center in the organization. I just went on site to a customer yesterday who I thought was doing a really great job at this Infusionsoft, where they have their 4 key personas blown up life size with key, what they look like, what their job is, what their day-to-day is, to really kind of help instill within the entire organization what these people deal with on a regular basis and help create that empathy throughout, whether it be on the sales side, whether it be on the marketing side, all the way through customer success. I think it's very key that people understand who your core audience is to help drive that full customer life cycle. And that bleeds all the way into how you message your emails to engage with them better, to how you create a onboarding program for your customers that will resonate with them, and on how you go to market with them and sell to them to create compelling value propositions. So that was something that was really compelling that we've touched on here, maybe not done as good a job as our customer Infusionsoft, but would like to continue to drive that through the organization.
Well, we can always get better at those things, and I think I'm excited to hear more people talk about the lifetime marketing opportunity with customers and what that can mean across the business, and really what it means in terms of marketing continuing to evolve its leadership role in the overall organization. You mentioned earlier the pace of marketing, and you're a veteran of a number of early stage companies, and so I know you are used to not only the fast pace of marketing, but also the expectation cycles, shall we say, of how marketing can deliver. Talk a little bit about what it takes to run and execute marketing in that fast-paced environment where you're expecting and hoping, and the entire company wants fast results, but that doesn't always jive with buying cycles, doesn't always jive with just what it takes to do marketing right. How do you balance that tension?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think for me it is one of the biggest struggles that I see us trying to tackle as marketers is really painting that big complex picture that is the buyer's journey and articulating the value. If you just focus completely on the demand gen piece, on the conversion piece, that you'll soon fall short on really creating that customer life cycle value that we talked about, as well as your diminishing returns if you're just focused on one area of the funnel. So really trying to, in my organizations, look at the buyer's journey. So when we have a good closed won deal that comes about, we'll paint a picture of their digital life cycle and really help educate the organization on all of the touch points these people went through to get from A to B. And I think that helps understand that we can't just there's not this knee-jerk reaction of, email is working, let's just double down on that, or ads are working, let's just double down on that. It's really very unlikely in B2B marketing that it's a single thread that is helping move your buyer through the buyer's journey.
Well, it's not. You're right. In most B2B environments, you don't have a one-call close, and so it's multiple threads, a complex cycle. And if you believe CEB, we now have 6 to 7 people involved in the buying committee. So there's an orchestration required inside of organizations. I don't know whether some people think of this as account-based marketing. I just think of it as the reality of sales and marketing today. As this process becomes more complex externally, what do you have to do as a marketing leader, especially coordinating with your sales organization, to better manage that process and do that in a way that is scalable and repeatable across a growing team?
Yeah, really good question. as you probably know, I'm a big ABM advocate. Have definitely had a lot of success with an ABM strategy. And to your point earlier, we talk about it as this new fad that's coming about, but in all honesty, it's sort of how sales has been operating since the dawn of time. They've always had key account lists on their side. In my mind, it's really just helping bridge the gap between sales and marketing and align them more clearly. And I feel better about what I'm doing. If I know I'm delivering campaign engagement or an opportunity to an account they've already identified that they want, that feels a lot better than me throwing over a whole lot of opportunities or leads that likely or will, much of which will fall short and just actually eats up the sales reps' resources and time and doesn't really prove results. So, ABM has been something that I've certainly implemented at the last 3 organizations and have had a lot of success with in terms of just helping increase our average deal size, decrease the sales cycle, and then just increase conversion rates all the way through. So it's been something I put in place at Radius this last year, and we're definitely doubling down on. And then back to your point of, it does get even more complex. So when we think about, all right, not only we have these accounts, but we also have 6 or 8 buyers that have different needs within that account. So, this year we're even focused even more bespoke, tailored account strategies to really high-value accounts that our sales and marketing teams have developed a list of these kind of high-value accounts that we feel we could really add value to. So that'll be really interesting to see, and in a different lens for marketing, where I would say 5-7 years ago we were all very focused on this volume approach. So from going from, hey, I delivered 8,000 hand raises or leads this quarter to, wow, I did 3 bespoke campaigns to really highly targeted strategic accounts with custom content is a different conversation, and is something that even at a progressive company like Radius, we've definitely had to have some change management around.
Yeah, I want to talk a lot more about that because I think, what you're describing in terms of moving from a volume game in marketing to, showing how many more leads you can generate, having that chart that goes to the board that shows up and to the right lead volume more and more and more and more. That's not, in many cases, that could be counterproductive to generating the revenue and sales that you want. So I definitely want to talk more about that, talk about the cultural changes that are sometimes involved in helping organizations, helping sales, helping the executive team, helping a board rethink how to look at what marketing is doing more on a quality versus a quantity standpoint. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with a lot more with Sherry Johnson, the SVP of Marketing for Radius. We're going to talk more about integrating with sales, talk about changing the mindset and culture of how marketing thinks in a revenue responsible way, and we're definitely going to talk about Santa.com. We'll be right back. Sales Pipeline Radio.
Whether you're producing a seminar series, users conference, lunch and learn, or exhibiting at a trade show, Validar has a solution. From capturing leads at trade shows to managing on-site registration, tracking session attendance, gathering information, and providing sponsors lead retrieval, we have a full suite of solutions for you. Since 2005, Validar has been turning corporate events and trade shows into better business. Call 888-784-2929 or visit us at validar.com.
In a world where the speed of innovation and change in B2B marketing has never been greater, the only thing bigger is the need for clarity, for a blueprint, for a guide to what's really working. And how about a way to apply it specifically today to increase sales pipeline growth, velocity, and most of all, conversion? That's what you'll find in the Modern Marketer's Field Guide. And amazingly, you can download it for free. HeinzMarketing.com, just like it sounds, HeinzMarketing. It encompasses the entire sales and marketing cycle, but in quick bursts with lots of specific, actionable ideas, strategies, tactics you can put to work right away, like today. The loaded table of contents helps you narrow in and tackle a problem. And it's something you can come back to over and over again as a reference guide. Why not download your free copy of the Modern Marketer's Field Guide? It's free. HeinzMarketing.com, just like it sounds. HEINZ Marketing.com. All right. Oh, wow. What was that? See, the rain's even affecting our audio here today. Here, back to Matt and his guest.
You got your own soundboard over there that can get your own guitar effects on your microphone.
I can actually. Here, I hit the wrong button there. I got all sorts of echo effects I can put on this.
Got to get me one of those. Oh, well, thanks very much again for listening to Sales Pipeline Radio. If you like what you hear, you can definitely check out more of what we're doing, salespipelineradios.com. Make sure you check us out in the next few weeks. We got some great guests coming up next week. Last official Thursday, well, not just last Thursday of the month in January, got John Miller, who is one of the co-founders of Marketo and is the founder of Engagio. Speaking of account-based marketing, he and his team are doing some interesting work there. Week following that, we've got David Primer, who is the vice president of sales at Influitive. We'll be talking about kicking off the year right and what happens after the sales kickoff. You get the sales kickoff, everyone gets excited. Then you go back to work and fire drills and reality abounds. So how do you make sure you continue the momentum and excitement from sales kickoffs? And in a couple weeks after that, we've got Lauren Vaccarello, who's the vice president of marketing at Box. We're going to be talking a lot about software as a service, sales and marketing, and how to do that effectively. Today, still very excited. Got some more time with Sherry Johnson, the SVP of marketing at Radius. And before we get back into kind of revenue responsibility and metrics and culture changes based on what you're doing, so if you go to Santa.com today, it is this really cool tool that allows your kids to get text messages from Santa. Imagine that might not have been what you were working on in the Wayback Machine. So it stuck out to me, obviously, on your resume. So I want to just hear what that was all about.
Yeah, definitely an interesting part of my career. I was a Pacific Northwesterner like yourself, living in Portland, and decided to, head down and ride this .com wave that was happening in the Bay Area. And, that was my first job in the Bay Area. It was a consumer-based site, really, no revenue model to speak of, but a lot of funding. We had a parade in downtown San Francisco with Christina Aguilera. We had television spots, but it was a really interesting time. But as you might imagine, with no revenue model, it quickly went downhill, and obviously was a very long time ago, aging myself here in, I believe, 1999. So,
well, I feel like those of us that were around, back then, especially those of us that are on our resumes, have sometime around 1999, 2000, some .com on our resumes. I don't know. We should write a book. We should all write like a joint memoir from some of the silly things that that we did in the name of growing a business that had no business model. There's a lot of interesting stories out there.
Definitely.
Well, let's get back to sort of task at hand. I mean, you spent, since the Santa.com holiday parade. I mean, you've been at Sun, you've been at Demandbase, you've basically been at Cisco, and so you've spent years now sort of honing what marketing is doing well, and your team at Radius is doing some great work. We were before the break. We were talking a little bit about culture shifts and the way that marketing not only thinks about it and operates from a marketing standpoint, but the way they communicate their value. Were there any growing pains, or I guess like migration pains, as you moved the way marketing's perceived from a volume-based story to a quality and conversion-based story? Was that difficult for even sort of sales counterparts, let alone C-suite and board to understand and get behind?
Definitely. I think on both sides, frankly. On the sales side, that's just what they've been used to. That's what they expect marketing is a volume game, and they want more and more and more. And, of course, they want quality as well, but that's a bit more ambiguous to measure. So that's definitely a change, a management issue that I've tried to solve by doing pilots and really focusing on a couple of key territories with an ABM model, showing some success, and then helping roll it out throughout the organization. But even on the marketing side, I think some marketers are really grasped not only to what they know and what they feel comfortable with, as well as a measure is a lot easier to explain of, hey, I'm doing my job, I delivered X, but also the issue around them having to explain this more complex system that they're offering and value that they're offering through ABM. So I think on both sides of the fence, it really was a change management side on the sales and marketing side to get everyone aligned and thinking differently than just a volume approach.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, for a lot of people we talk to about this, it's a work in progress. I mean, not only sort of, changing the culture, how you communicate it, but then how you do it. I mean, I've worked in companies where, there's a revenue goal attached to marketing, but you'll have someone in marketing that isn't willing to increase their cost per lead because that's what they manage. Even if increasing their cost per lead could actually go after the right prospects, get the right prospects in, and actually increase the contribution of marketing into the pipeline. I mean, do you see remnants of that? Is that a cultural change? Does that require hiring new people with different perspectives into marketing? Like, how do people start to migrate that better, into 2017?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I think to your point, an ABM approach is really effective, or a targeted approach is only effective if everyone's really on board. If some people are still on a volume game approach and some are focused on different goals, you're going to get very mixed results. The other change management issue I find very prominent in these high growth companies, including my own, is you'll get everyone on the same page, which seems in a triumph in of it itself of here's our model, here's where we're at, everyone's on board, we're seeing initial success. But in a fast-paced company, we lots of times bring in, rightfully so, new leadership to help scale the organization that lots of times you have to resell or re-educate on this new process that they may not be used to, and that's not the lens that they have measured or looked at before. There's still a definite consensus or a different opinion that marketing only controls the top of the funnel and then therefore shouldn't be responsible for metrics in the sales world. And I think that's something that it takes education to overcome that, hey, as we're progressing as marketers, this is a more progressive approach to doing things and frankly produces a lot better value for the organization as a whole.
But what I found is a lot of marketing organizations and executives who begin to embrace that revenue responsibility, it naturally kind of pushes them in the direction of doing more sales enablement work. I think it's a natural for marketing to provide value further into the funnel. Sometimes that ends up generating some turf battles between sales and marketing, or sales isn't used to marketing providing that value, and there can be some feet stepped on. What does sales enablement look like for you guys, and how do you think about that role in conjunction with your sales counterparts? Yeah,
definitely. One nuance here that's kind of interesting that I'm seeing more and more of to help with that issue, and I think there's positives and negatives to it, but at Radius we all roll up, and sales and marketing rolls up to our COO, so we functionally are all actually in the same organization, which I think helps create alignment in that we really are sort of forced to align under the same management. But there's also there's still the natural battle of throwing that handoff needing to be seamless, and the contention between that does not necessarily go away just with the org structure change. Sales enablement for sure is something that I've seen actually in my organizations be a bit batted back and forth between the organizations. I take up an approach on that the lens is typically better seen through the functional organization that it's coming out of. So, for instance, my organization is very focused on strategy. We're not necessarily a great services organization. So while we create sales enablement for the core sales enablement function of data sheets, our presentations, all of our core assets, the bespoke and tailored messaging is done by the individual groups. So we have sales enablement structured to do that more tailored approach for one-off requests in the sales group, and then same on the customer success side, where a more service-oriented one-off request structure is needed.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank our guest today, Sherry Johnson, SVP of Marketing at Radius. Thanks so much for joining us. These times always go so fast. We run out of time very quickly in a half-hour show, but thanks so much for joining us. Thanks, everyone, for joining us on another episode of Sales Pipeline Radio. If you want to hear from Sherry again, you can definitely hear a recap or a replay on demand at salespipelineradio.com. And if you want to make sure you don't miss any future episodes, join us live any Thursday at 2:30 Eastern, 11:30 Pacific, or subscribe to the podcast, iTunes Store, and Google Play. Thanks very much on behalf of Sherry and our fine producer, Paul. This is Matt Hines. Thanks for listening. Sales Pipeline Radio.
You've been listening to Sales Pipeline Radio, the only show that takes a look at how to build and sustain a pipeline, with Matt Hines from Hines Marketing.